In today's video, I'm going to tell you the 3 things that most writers don't think about when it comes to hiring an editor. I know, hiring a good editor can be expensive, and most writers see the quotes and they run for the hills like they're being chased by tigers. I know. Some of them are in my inbox. But today, I really want to spotlight hiring an editor in a different light, because hiring an editor isn't just about getting back an edited manuscript. Obviously, that is the goal, that is the job, that is what we do, but that is not the only thing. So if you can find a good editor and you can utilize their expertise, working with an editor is so much more than just getting back an edited manuscript. Hello, welcome back to Chats and Chapters. I am Caitlin Howarth. I am a book editor. You probably guessed that. I'm also writing my first book, and on this channel, we talk about writing, editing, self-editing, all of that good stuff. So if you would like to become a better writer, if you want to get better at your self-edits and listen to more chats like this, then please subscribe so that you can join the Chats and Chapters tribe. The 3 benefits of hiring a book editor that you just can't argue with me. And if you have any arguments, please leave them in the comments, because I would love to hear the arguments to what I'm about to say. The first benefit is you have a cheerleader. A lot of writing, a lot of the brainstorming process, a lot of everything about writing a book is very secluded. You come up with the idea, you brainstorm it, you wonder if people are going to like it, you write it, you plot it out, you come up with the characters, you give them personalities, you put them on a quest, you do the plot, you raise the stakes, you make it tense, you add a romance, you do so much stuff for this story. And most of the time, most writers do it by themselves. You're going to coffee shops, you're staying up late when the kids are asleep, you're skipping meals, you're not drinking enough water. All of these things you're doing by yourself. You're very secluded. It's all happening within your brain. And hiring a good editor gives you a cheerleader. And I'm not talking about the pom-pom jumping around cheerleader. I'm talking about a cheerleader who has read your manuscript, who knows your story, who has mulled it over, who has spent time with your characters in your world and is invested in making the story come to life. Yes, obviously, you paid them to be invested, but they're invested. They have spent hours reading your manuscript. They have spent more hours writing an editorial letter. They have spent even more hours writing a style sheet if you got a copy edit. Like, there's so much time that goes into this. You have someone who knows the ins and outs of your story, and therefore you can brainstorm with them. You can use their brain, not what is just within the editorial memo or within the style sheet. I do calls with my authors after a round of edits. So if you get a developmental edit and you either have questions about some of my suggestions, or you are curious and you want to brainstorm how you could add a few elements that I suggested, or you had an epiphany and you want to add a new character, how could you introduce them, this, that, like anything like that, that is within the realm of that coaching call after editing services. And so you have someone who knows the ins and outs of your story, not as much as you, of course. You always know your story best. You know exactly what you want it to be, what you envisioned, all of that stuff, but you have someone who knows more about it than your cousin who read it once and is like, I'm not really a reader, but I'll read it for you, I guess. It's absolutely amazing the things that I will talk to my authors about on their coaching calls, like the epiphanies, the things they add. I had one author say that she changed something on almost every single page. She was like, this feedback, the questions that you asked, I redid everything. There were so many little things that I didn't pick up on. And she's so much happier with her manuscript now. And life made. Like, that is my goal. It is not just to say, change this, do that. It is literally to be a cheerleader for the authors that I work with. Like, if you have questions, if you're unsure, if you just need someone to sit down and you need like to process things verbally, let me know. Let me know. I live for it. I love coaching calls because I love to see how my clients' gears turn in their brains. It's absolutely fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. As much as I love sitting down and editing and, putting all the pieces together on paper, aka my computer, I love so much having these conversations with everyone that I work with because seeing how their gears turn is fascinating. The second benefit of hiring an editor that you cannot argue with is you become a better writer by learning through the things that your editor suggests, changes, questions, comments, concerns, all of those good things. If you get a developmental edit, those are looking at structure, your plot, the flow of your story, your pacing. How is the story going from beat to beat, scene to scene, chapter to chapter? And when you get the suggestions, if you really take them to heart and you want to learn to become a better writer, you can take the suggestions and the questions that they ask and then implement that feedback, apply that same thought process, that same logic to the next manuscript that you write. If they continuously point something out about, I'm a little confused about this character, I'm a little confused about how this looks. If they're constantly saying, I don't really know how this looks, we need a little more description. When you go to write the second one, you might need to add a little bit more subscription. You might need to add a little more description because it's not coming across on the page. There can be a really big disconnect between what you are seeing in your brain and what actually comes across on the page. So if you get that developmental edit and you take all that feedback, you can bring the overarching thought of it into your other stories as you continue to write. Same thing as if you get a line edit. If you get a line edit and you have a good editor and they make changes, usually the first handful of changes that I make about the same thing, I will put why. If it is show versus tell and I corrected something from telling to more showing, I'm gonna highlight that and say, I edited this because this was 99% telling and now it is showing. And so seeing the before and the after of your manuscript, before line edits and after line edits, you'll be able to pick up on telling when you should be showing most of the time. You'll be able to pick up on the filter and the filter words when you use redundancies, when you're saying the same thing multiple times, but you're not giving any extra context. I will highlight that and say, pick your favorite, cut the other two. So if you utilize the edits that you get back within a line edit, you will clearly see how to improve your sentences, how to improve dialogue, how to improve the flow of your story on the line level. If you get a copy edit, then you're really gonna learn consistency. You are going to learn whether your character has blue eyes or green eyes because you have to decide. If on page 15 they have blue eyes and then on page 26 they run into someone else and they have green eyes, you're going to be like, wait, hold on. Because that's going to be pointed out on the style sheet. That's an inconsistency that you're going to have to decide, and that's noted. And then going forward, you know what color eyes they have. You're going to know how your formatting should look. So when you learn that you need a comma for a dialogue tag and a period at the end of dialogue, if you're following it up with an action beat, going forward as you write other manuscripts, you see the corrections, you understand what you need to change and how to improve it. So you get better as you go through your rounds of self-edits by utilizing and reviewing and learning from the edits that you get from your book editor. Finally, if you get a proofread, spelling, punctuation, if something is wonky, proofreads are the one service that every author should get. Like, you should not proofread your own book because you've seen it so many times, especially if you went through and did your own developmental edit and you did your own line edit and, you know, all of that good stuff. You're going to miss things in a proofread. No matter what you do, whether you change the font, you change the program, you read it on a different device, you're going to miss things because you know what you want it to say on the page and your brain will automatically correct it. It's the cheapest service. It's the cheapest service. Always get a proofread. Always get a proofread. And then you just have to decide if you want a Microsoft Word proofread, or if you want a PDF that's already formatted so that your proofreader can double check your formatting, your spacing, chapter titles, everything like that. It really depends on what you're comfortable with and if you have a formatter that is going to double check that as well. So if you utilize all the feedback that you get from your editor, you can learn so much, and that is so important. It is incredibly valuable going forward to becoming a better writer. The third benefit of hiring an editor that you cannot argue with is that they are going to spot so much that you never would have thought of. As the creator of the story, the plot, the character arcs, the villain, all of the things, the magic system, the world, you will never be able to spot everything that a fresh pair of eyes will be able to point out. You are naturally just too close to your own work. Like, you won't be able to spot everything that an editor who comes in completely clueless will be able to spot. And this is really, really important because your readers are coming in clueless. They haven't been living in your head for the last year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years that you've been thinking and planning out this story. So they don't know all the back story that you have. They don't know all the lore. They don't have all the ideas. They don't have all of that you have in the back of your head as you're reading it. They're completely clueless. So having an editor come in that's also clueless and can read it with a critical eye, as we are trained to do, but can also read it as a reader, is so, so valuable. And you can't argue with me about it, okay? You just can't. That wraps up this week's video on Chats and Chapters. I appreciate you being here. Please let me know if you have any arguments about these benefits that I say you can't argue with. I'd love to know in the comments below if you've ever thought about any of these things, if you've worked with an editor before and you have learned from something that they suggested. Please share it down below in the comments. I would love to hear other things and we can all learn within the comments. That would be amazing. And I hope you enjoyed this week's video, and I will see you next week.